Hello, everybody. Good news. This episode is suitable for all ages, which I'm sure comes as a relief to some of you. Keeping that in mind, as you ready your ears to participate in the story, I thank you for being here. Also, please stay tuned after the episode for a deep dive into the story with me. Without further delay, this is Short Stories with Stefan, Episode 4, The Boy Who Became Everything. There are not a lot of things I can do these days. It is a terrible thing to become everything all of the time. This is why I sit in my room, and it is also why I have a long stick to shake people's hands, give them a thumbs up, or other necessary human interactions. I am human, I think, or at least that is what my mother has told me. However, I am beginning to come to a new understanding of what I might be. I love books, all types of books. Since I don't go out often, books are a great escape to let my mind wander and ponder what life would be like if I didn't turn into everything I touched. It's only when the bare skin on my hands touches something that I take its form for 1 hour. One time I turned into the toaster, and I have since refused to ever eat toasted bread again. My mom went out and bought a toaster oven, and I've made sure to stay as far away as possible. Today is a treacherous day, because my cousins are coming to visit. I haven't seen them since Christmas, which was a disaster because I turned into an ornament. A lot of people don't consider how lonely ornaments can be. A tree is a vast and otherwise unexplored area from the perspective of an ornament. I put on my protective gloves like a superhero readying for battle. I brush my teeth, brush my hair, get dressed, and then go downstairs. I do my breathing exercises, eat my breakfast, blow my mom a kiss, then go back upstairs. I sit on my bed and grab my favorite book, Jack Cool and the Escape from Dungeon Cove. The whole story is about how Jack Cool gets trapped in this cove full of monsters, and he has to fight and think his way out. Man, if I could be anyone, I'd be Jack Cool. First off, his last name is literally cool, and he always knows how to get out of a tough situation. If Jack Cool turned into a toaster, he'd probably figure out a way to communicate through the bread. I reread my favorite parts, the one-eyed goblin part, when he has to remain behind the goblin the whole time he plays him in a game of giant chess, the rock slide part, when an earthquake causes the whole cove to crumble and he has to hide under the body of a monster he slayed. Oh, or my favorite scene of all, the final escape. This is the part when he jumps to either his freedom or death. And when he finally lands in water unharmed, he swims to the shore and is free at last. I wish I could jump out of my body and into one that doesn't turn into everything it touches. Then, I hear the doorbell ring. It clangs like a bell from an old Spanish mission, and I feel the reverberations through my spine. I set my book down and run to my door, looking over the second-story ledge down to the front door. In walks in Chloe, my short, blonde-haired, blue-eyed cousin. After her comes Rebecca, my tall, brown-haired, green-eyed cousin. Last is Freddie, my tall, skinny, blonde-haired, green-eyed cousin. They all have the same parents, but somehow still look like the result of a genetic lottery experiment. All at once, I am filled with a rush of fear, like watching a cup being poured past its capacity. I feel the fear spilling out of me. I don't want to play with my cousins because they're cruel, and my parents have no idea how creative they can be. They always wait until I am comfortable and then try to get my hands to touch something I hate. It was them who forced my hand onto an ornament and then laughed hysterically when I became one. It was harrowing and horrifying. Maybe it's because I'm 1 year older now, and after all, 12 is much different from 11. I'm practically a teenager now. Maybe it's because I just got done reading about the adventures of Jack Cool. Whatever the reason, I decided this moment to take my destiny into my own hands. I'm going to escape this cove, and I'm going to escape from these monsters. I can hear their ghastly feet trudging up the stairs like the goblin in my book. I run back into my room and look around for an idea, a shelter, an escape. Then I see it. My book on my bed. I pick it up with my gloves and return it to the shelf. I remove my gloves, reach out, take a deep breath, and touch my Jack Cool book. In an instant, I am now looking up and around at my room from the shelf, as my neighboring volumes create a cozy atmosphere. I watch as my fiendish cousins stomp into my room and look around with ravenous eyes for their little cousin. Freddie lumbers over to the bookshelf with an evil intuition and scans the books, his eyes crossing my binding back and forth until resting them right on my spine. He reaches out and pulls me from the shelf. I don't understand. How could he know that I am this book? It makes no sense. He begins reading out loud to Chloe and Rebecca, and they joke and laugh about how stupid they think the book is. He tosses me to the ground and I fall under my bed. This place is much less comfy than the bookshelf. It's dark, dusty, and look! There's a blue sock I've been searching for. I've been under the bed now for at least an hour, and by now my cousins think I've escaped out the back door. I know they are leaving at 3:30 p.m., and that gives me about 2 hours to find 2 more excellent hiding spots. As I hear them walking about like bubbling idiots outside, I look for a more creative hiding place. I see my mother's keys, and knowing she won't be leaving until my cousins do, I know it's a safe bet. I touch the keys and am now enjoying a nice elevated view from the hook upon the wall. Eventually, my cousins return from their empty outside escapade. My cousin Rebecca looks at the keys on the hook and decides to do something diabolical. She grabs me off the key hook, and all 3 rush outside to my mother's car. They jump in and jam me into the ignition, and they begin blasting awful music, and I am certain if I don't die inside the ignition, I'll perish from the awful tunes. Finally, the torture ends, and I am returned to the key hook on the wall as my cousins begin to brainstorm about where I could be hiding. I hear them consult my mother, but she only gives them a humorous shrug and suggests that I have gotten better at hiding since they last saw me. My mother is correct about that. I know now that I only have a few minutes before I must make a dash for my last hiding spot. The 3 brutes I am related to continue their quest to find and squelch their little cousin. I scan the room from my vantage point and I see it. The lamp. It's tall and slender and completely incognito. I feel the hour pass and I am me again. Well, human person me anyway. I jump over the couch, careful not to touch anything, and reach out for the lamp. At last, I have found my last hiding place. I can rest easy. My cousins return to the living room, press my side button to illuminate my nose bulb of a head, and sit on the couch. I can see them planning, plotting, their faces scrunched up like a bowl of spaghetti. Their grunts and groans of defeat make me feel victorious. At last, the clock strikes 3:30 and my cousins are marched out of the house one by one in defeat. An hour after their exit, I return to being human and walk with my head held high upstairs. I carefully put my gloves on, grab my book from under my bed, and continue reading about Jack Cool. I think he would be pretty impressed with me today. I may not have dodged goblins, battled dragons, or survived an earthquake, but I did outsmart and outrun monsters. And I feel pretty cool about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to After the Story with me. This episode, The Boy Who Became Everything, was inspired by a little boy who I used to work with, who I admire very much as just an incredible individual who worked really hard to integrate himself back into the classroom when I worked with him, and I miss him very much, and I hope he's doing really well. But he taught me about a certain condition that is a fear of becoming other things when you physically touch it. So when I met this individual, I had to wear gloves, and it took a long time to build up the trust and rapport to be able to not wear gloves and be okay. But he was so full of joy and ingenuity and creativity that I imagined if he wrote a story, that it might sound something like this. That was the intention behind it. And it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be silly and ridiculous to imagine the ability to become anything you touch. And I love the idea of the parallel that we make as kids and as adults of our heroes and our favorite stories and what we might think that they would do in our situations. And kids are really good at this. They are really good at reminding us of how amazing some things that people do are. And they're really good at reminding us how mesmerizing it is when we share these stories. When when you're a kid and you read a story about someone who overcomes these incredible obstacles, your imagination is just brimming to the surface with unparalleled ideas of what's possible and what's not. And we kind of lose that as we get older. We lose the impossibility and the power of some of these stories, but it's always in us. It's not going anywhere. It's a part of us. And this story for me highlights how silly and how fun it can be when we make those parallels, when we have our favorite heroes. Because as adults, our heroes are different than when we were kids. And we get to kind of reevaluate what admiration for that hero looks like or could look like. And the cousins torturing him is very relatable. A lot of people, myself included, have had some interesting encounters with family. Some encounters to the point where you wish you could become something else, like a book on a shelf, or a sock under your bed, or a lamp, just so you don't have to interact with certain people. I think a part of me secretly wishes I had that ability because it could be really helpful in some group settings where I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I don't want to be here. So I'm going to go be a lamp. I'm going to go be a set of keys and just chill on the keychain for a while and rest and relax. So I'm sure we can all relate to that on a certain level. But The Boy Who Became Everything is really just a silly, fun story about a boy who can become anything he touches and what he would do in that moment and how he would admire his hero for being proud of him in a make-believe sort of way. And there's really a lot of room for interpretation as to what he was hiding from and why he was hiding and what his cousin's intentions were and are and whatever you want to take it to mean. I think it has a lot of different meanings. I'm not going to say what I think they are because then that would rob you of your own individual definitions of the meanings of the story. But I'm, regardless, so pleased and happy that you stuck around and listened and took your time out of your day to listen to the story in the first place. And as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time on Short Stories with Stefan. Bye-bye.